Hello everyone, I am Nerdstalgic, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's edition of Wraeclastonomics. So, I do apologize for missing last week's episode. I was out of town for quite some time, so being that I wasn't really around, I wasn't really in trade, I didn't feel like it would be advisable for me to try to, give you some rates that I hadn't really seen. So I just didn't bother putting out a video last week, and yeah, but I have been playing this week, so I do have some rates for you. Decided I would try something a little bit different. I know it's kind of boring to just look at a spreadsheet, so I'm just actually I'm sitting in trade 1, and we can just kind of see trade. You can just watch trade chat roll, and you can see that it's rolling pretty fast. I mean, it's late at night as I'm recording this. Still going pretty quick. So, and I plan on doing something a little bit later in the video with trade chat. So there will be that. Okay, so let's talk about some currency. How about that? All right. So yeah, scrolls. Just in general, wisdoms, portals. Still sitting at 160 to 1. That's just. As I've mentioned in videos before, it's a very standard rate. Sometimes you will see people buying for more, maybe even selling cheaper if they need quick cash, but 160 to 1 is the rate that you'll probably be looking for as a casual or even hardcore player that's not a flipper, basically. Transmute's still 40 to 1. Augmentations, insufficient data, just haven't seen enough information, I guess you'd say, to really hazard a guess on what these go for. So yeah. Let's see, whetstones 20 for 1. That's, it's been that way I think since I started this series, and it's just kind of a standard rate. Armor's 40 to 1. I've moved baubles back to insufficient data just because I don't see enough people buying or selling. So I think typically most people try to source their baubles from within through the recipe. Chromes are pretty steady at 18 to 20 to 1. If somebody's in a pinch, they will buy at 17 or 16, but normally, I just saw somebody there trying to sell 13 to 1. Good luck on that, bud. Anyways, 18 to 1 I think is a pretty good rate to try to sell at. Alts have gained on the chaos a little bit. They're currently at about 14 to 1, and that's a pretty easy trade. You might be able to get more value for your alts than that even. Jewelers 7 to 1. I have seen some people buying at 6 to 1. I've seen a lot of people buying at 8 to 1. If you wanted an easy trade, 8 to 1 is always going to be out there. The flippers, that's what they're offering. But I think 7 to 1 is probably a good rate for deals between people who aren't flippers. Chance orbs 6 to 1. I saw somebody the other day buying at 5 to 1. And so that price is floating out there. Flippers are trying to buy at 7 to 1, 8 to 1. So therefore, 6 to 1 is probably the price where you're going to find your action. Chisels 2 to 1, maybe 2.5 to 1, just depends. Fuses 2 to 1. Scours 2 to 1. Blessed 2 to 1. Now, the thing about all these is a lot of them are 2 to 1, but if you try to if you actually did the math on what exalts to chaos are, because right now chaos roughly are about 70 chaos for an exalt. So like by that logic, you should be able to get say like 140 fuse for an exalt, but you're not going to be able to find that. You're probably going to be able to get 110, 120. So yeah, and that's because right now chaos is a little bit well, there's just not a lot of use for chaos at this point. I mean, aside from re-rolling maps, you know, really, and doing putting map mods on with Xana, there's just not really a good use for chaos. There's not a good chaos. It's not a real good chaos sink in the game. So, what you could, I guess, what a lot of people are arguing is that the chaos to exalt rate isn't really an accurate representation of the value of chaos. Maybe that it's more like fuse to exalt is a little bit more accurate. Anyways, Veil Orbs are just as I had kind of thought would end up happening. The market is pretty dry at 1-to-1. You know, when the league started, you could probably get Veil 2 for 1C. But as Veil has really seen a lot of spike in popularity because it's just used so much in this league, with, you know, corrupting jewels and corrupting maps, etc., etc. It's just, there's been a lot of pressure on Veil against Chaos, so right now I'm valuing Veil. If you want to get a trade, especially if you want it in bulk, you're probably going to have to pay 1.5 Chaos per Veil. So that's not to say that the 1-for-1 trades aren't still out there. They are. I have gotten a few trades at 1-for-1, but typically what it is it's people who, it's like casual players who are only going to have a few. If you're really wanting to pick up a lot of Veil, you're going to have to shell out some money. Regrets are pretty steady at 1-to-1. Regals are still, you know, 1.5 C for 1, maybe 2C, but just Regals, I guess, are just not seeing a lot of play. Brings us to Exalts. I have seen Exalt being bought at as much as 73 to 74. I'm putting the value around 70. Try to buy at 70. If you're selling, I would probably try to sell at a little bit higher than that. I think you probably could get it. Or just hang on to them, because it's kind of, you know, with the news that came out last week on Reddit about, you know, the meta crafting and how people are making all these really good items, which I'm not really going to go into in here, but suffice it to say, basically the cat's out of the bag on why Exalt has appreciated so much. I mean, it is also because Eternals are not here anymore, but Master Crafting is really propelling the price of Exalts. So will it continue to appreciate? It could continue to appreciate, because as more people are finding out about this, you know, the meta crafting, you know, more people could be trying to do it. Or you could be of the mind that basically the people who learned about it are probably going to be the people who wouldn't get into that anyways. I don't know. GCP 2-to-1 is a pretty steady rate. Like I've said in a few episodes before, I think GCP is going to end up appreciating very soon. I think you're going to start to see it climb up closer to 3-to-1. So GCP wouldn't be a bad investment, I think, at this point, if you can get it 2-to-1, or, I mean, you know, I see flippers trying to buy it 1-to-1. I question whether that actually is a happening thing, but Divines I've got marked up a little bit, 15C each. I have seen people trying to go 4 Divines for an Exalt, which if you divided that out, that would be actually closer to like 17C per Divine, but I think 15C is a pretty good intermediate price for me. I'll continue to watch the market, and I might set the price up a little bit more next week. And then Mirror, I've only seen one for sale. You know, I admittedly, I don't spend a whole awful lot of time sitting in trade chat 1. You know, I may sit in there. See, there's a guy right here trying to buy an Exalt for 75C. So there you have it. You know, he wants to buy 1 Exalt for 75C. So you're going to have instances like that where people are going to want to buy at higher. But those kind of takers aren't always going to be there. What's always going to be there are going to be your market makers, which basically are your flippers. So, anyways, I don't always sit and trade one. I stop by a few times a day, sometimes to make purchases, sometimes just to check it out, you know, just to see what's happening. You know, I'm not one of these people who sits in here and buys these yellows up, you know, and flips them, mainly because you can really lose your ass on that if you don't know exactly what you're doing. And I'm not too ashamed to admit that, you know, I'm not the best at pricing yellows, you know, and, you know, that's kind of a thing that I think the market's already kind of made a correction on that. A lot of these people that you see selling these yellows in here, they probably know what they're worth, you know, and you might be able to find some wiggle room there, a little bit of arbitrage. But all right, so let's look at trade chat just for a second and see what's going on. What I was actually thinking about ending this video with was kind of showing you or telling you how to actually spot a flipper. Now, it's really not that hard to spot a flipper, but typically the biggest red flag that it's a flipper is going to be somebody who's buying multiple currencies at the same time. And usually the rates are going to feel a little bit bad. So like we're looking through here, let's see if we can spot a flipper. So this guy right here, he's buying Regret 1-to-1, Scour 2-to-1, Chance 8-to-1, Alks 3-to-1. This guy right here, what he's trying to do is he's trying to flip Chance and Alks. His Scour rate's fine, his Regret rate's fine. I mean, it's market prices, but he is probably flipping that, maybe. I mean, he's not really buying a whole lot, though. Let's see. You know, you got flippers, and then you got power sellers. You know, somebody like this, you know, they're selling a lot of items and maps. They're probably not a flipper. They're probably more of a power seller. Let's see. Fusing 2-for-1 chaos, Veil 1-for-1 chaos. This right here, this could be somebody who is either, you know, not a flipper who just needs these particular currencies, or this could also be somebody who is a flipper but also has a second account running to buy these things up, and then he's selling on his other account. Typically, if you see somebody who has challenges done, it's not going to be a flipper. Because these flippers, they don't have time to do any of that. They don't have time to do these challenges. Now, I'm not saying that from experience. I haven't like quizzed these flippers and been like, excuse me, sir, are you a flipper? Do you do challenges? No. I'm just going by common sense. You know, if they're flipping and they're actually trying to make it work, they're going to have to be in trade chat constantly. So this guy's wanting to sell 13 chromatics for 1 chaos, which is a pretty crap rate. And then, but the alchemy to chaos is right. Now this guy is definitely, you can tell this guy's a flipper. This guy is a flipper. So he's buying divines at 16-to-1, okay. GCP 1-to-2, Regals 1-to-1, ugh. Scours 2-to-1, Regret 1-to-1, Veil 1-to-1. Jewelers, very poor rate. Fuses, okay. Orbs of Alteration 15-to-1, Chances 7-to-1. Not a very good rate. Tabula 16C. He's a flipper, but his rates aren't terrible. Well, actually, I take that back. He is buying at these rates. So, I mean, where is he? The real places where he's screwing people here is the Veil Orb. Well, I mean that, you know, sort of. The Jeweler's Orbs, the Orbs of Chance. He's just skimming a little bit of profit there, really. He might not be a flipper, but typically whenever I see somebody who has these fancy designs and stuff, I normally think they're a flipper. Plus, I've actually seen this guy in trade chat very, very often selling currency. So this guy's still trying to buy 1x for 75C. The fact that he hasn't found it already kind of tells me that it's not out there at 75C. That's interesting. Ooh, that's a really good price on the Carto chisels. 30 for 20C. It's like 1.5 per. It's pretty dang good. So here we got a guy doing some currency flipping, but also he's also flipping map pieces. So anyways, trade one is, I find it interesting to sit in there and see what's going on. See, here's a guy wanting to sell for 76, so maybe he'll hook up that other guy. I think it's interesting to sit in here and see what people are trying to sell at. You see some, well, there's the discount. You see some funny things in there, so, nah. But if you get into Trade Chat 1, I would not take the first thing that you see unless you're very, very sure that it's a good rate. That would be my advice to you. So, anyways, if you got any questions, any ideas for things that you'd like to see in the Wraeclastonomics series, just let me know. I'll add it in. You know, I'd love to address some other things that you guys are interested in. And yeah, I will return next week with another episode of Wraeclastonomics, and we'll see if the Exalt continues to go up and if the Regal continues to go down, and you know what happens in the wake of these metacrafting revelations. Should be pretty interesting. I mean, the league is about halfway over, so you're going to start to see rates are going to start to try to peg themselves to standard rates a little bit more, especially towards the end of the league. So that's something definitely to keep in mind. All right, guys, I'll catch you then. Until then, game on.